Some business owners want to build an audience, while others want to build a community. What's the difference? Why is it even important? Today's guest, Jen Pilcher, knows the secrets to not just building a community for your brand, but making sure that that community will outlast even you. Welcome to the 15-ish minute coffee chat live stream and podcast with Anna and Selena. 12 seasons of helping entrepreneurs and small business owners build more profitable businesses. Welcome to the show.
Yay! I am so pumped for this conversation. We have actually we dropped this little hey, do you think you'd be on a show back in September of last year? And Jen was like, hell yeah. I don't know. When they get excited, maybe I'm paraphrasing, so Jen will clarify when she comes back up. But we are super pumped because she is the mastermind of one of my favorite kind of events that happens in the military community. But also a little tidbit. She also she was one of the owners of something that I was a part of. The very first thing that I delved into in the military community when I didn't have a job, when I kind of just I left my 20-year career and I went over to Fort Polk, Louisiana. Those who are in the military would understand. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to revive my mommy blog. And so I said, I need to get into the military community. And I applied for a blogging position. It was, and they liked me and they said, yeah, be part of our blogger brigade. And, I got to write little military blogs just to kind of introduce myself into that world. And so anyway, years later, Jen is actually giving a keynote speaking at a Milspouse Fest. And she mentions that she is the founder. And I was like, no way. And I just wanted to tell her, hey, you said she was excited about it. And I got me excited about it. And again, I could go on and on, but the whole point is to have Jen here to talk, right? Not about how I met Jen again and again and again.
But I think that what you just did is you gave a prime example of why we're having this conversation today, right? Yes. You were searching out some place to belong.
Yeah.
And you found one. And it has been part of the foundation of where you are today, which is kind of a big deal. And that's what Jen's here to talk about, right? So
you know what? Yes, it is a full circle moment when you say it like that. That is where I, honest to God, got started in dipping into the military world in business. Mm-hmm. And now I get to speak to the creator of that. Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you hadn't found that community, you would be in a completely different place right now. That's what I'm saying. So, okay. So we're going to get going, but let me put this call to action in we want you to drop in the chat right now. Is building community part of your brand strategy for your small business? So again, what does that mean? If you're not really quite sure, when you think about your brand strategy, does community, that word, even come into play? So let us know in the comments so that we can kind of see where our listening audience is at right now. All right.
Yeah. Okay. I got to do the bio. I'm so excited. I'm kind of I'm not going in sequence of what I normally do. So let's bring up the bio so I can read a little bit about who Jen is. This is Jen Pilcher. She is the founder and CEO of Strategic Military Communications, LLC. She is a former speech language pathologist turned founder, investor, and consultant. Using more than 20 years of communication, marketing, sales, and media experience, she is one of the nation's foremost thought leaders and sought-out speakers among corporate and startup communities. She is a limited and venture partner with a veteran fund, a pre-seed venture capital fund in Silicon Valley, backing military veteran-led technology startups. She's pretty...
And she's the leader of the Mommy Blogger Brigade. That's all I want to add to that too, right? All right, so we're going to bring Jen up so she can join us up here on stage. Yay! We are so excited to have you here.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm backstage just ready to join the conversation. This is so fun.
Yeah, when you think about communities, it's kind of wild. You are a part of so many creations of communities. And I wonder if you realize the impact that you have made for others without realizing it, because you created spaces for them to belong.
Oh, thank you. Well, Selena, hearing stories like yours just lights up my soul. And I agree with you. I think we're all having finally these come full circle moments. And for me, that last Mill Spouse Fest we all saw each other at was just that for me. So I think it's neat to be able to be in this stage of life to hear those stories. And it truly means a lot. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, and I think it speaks a lot too. I mean, you don't always see the impact that you have on someone else. And so that was that was kind of a cool moment for Selena to make that realization, like, that's Jen. That's the one who brought me into the military community, right? And to be able to say that to you, it's got to feel pretty good. Like, I love.
Oh, and I love the stories. Like we were laughing about, we could be on here for 3 hours. So somebody's got to like pull me off because we could talk about, because I have so many questions. We won't go there today, but how that experience was for you, because that is important too, is not just someone who comes up with the idea, but the idea is only good if the community and the engagement is there to do it. So truly, it would not be successful without bloggers like you. That's the way it works. So
thank you.
Thank you for being part of that and taking a risk. I mean, you could have been like, who are these crazy people? But you jumped in. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think Jen just birthed like a whole new podcast somewhere. We're going to talk about like communities, and we're going to be hosting a whole nother show. So yay.
Perfect.
Okay, before we get started, I don't know how I'm speaking like to a speech pathologist. My goodness. We are going to be doing our coffee cup selfie before we get started. So whatever you have in a cup next to you, Jen, water, whatever.
Tea, hot tea.
Yes.
Or I should say hot toddy. That's what my grandmother would say. It was a military's house, but it's just tea this morning.
Okay. Maybe later it will be something spicier. Okay, on 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. We're gonna put Jen in that seat that says, "Hey, I'm answering in questions." So, all right, Anna, let's get started. What's the first one we're gonna talk to Jen about?
So our very first question is, what is the difference between an audience and a community? Because there is a difference. So Jen, we would love your thoughts on this.
Well, first of all, I've never been asked that question. I think it's the most fabulous question in the world. So good on you for picking this one. And it did make me think for only 1 second, because an immediate answer came to my mind. I think of an audience as one-way communication. I think of community as a two-way communication style. So when you go to a movie, you're in the audience, but you don't get to interact or communicate with the actors on screen. I believe only community can work if there's two-way engagement. So when you pose that question, that's kind of the visual I got, the difference between an audience and community. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that is a fantastic definition.
Yeah, that was really, you actually like putting it together like that made me think back to the Mill Spouse Fest that we were part of. The way that you guys engaged with all the military spouses or the people in the audience, we did become a part of a community because it was very interactive. It was very, you know what I mean? Like, let's have a two-way. What a great way to like say that.
That's very intentional. So I love that you felt that way, because when you're building out the agenda for the day, it's very intentional. And then Dania, who's the director of programs, sends out surveys, and we pore over the surveys to find out, well, what does the community need and want? And a lot of times in our world, they send out surveys, they get the answers, and they still go the way they want to go. And she does a phenomenal job of really saying or hearing, we want more time to engage with each other. So I'm sure you remember the lifesaver game, just something as simple as that, as when you're sitting there and it's awkward and you don't, 75% of the spouses come to a Mill Spouse Fest by themselves. So there has to be something intentional of getting them to be able to connect and communicate with each other.
See, and that just shows thoughtfulness in people that are supporting your community, because you do know that even at our table, there was 4 of us that knew each other, but there was actually other members that we had just met that day.
Yeah.
And you
And think of
created,
how hard that
yes.
is. When was the last time you've truly gone to a party? I mean, it's like and one time we did this, we showed up to the wrong house on a Super Bowl party. So, I give them so much credit for showing up to a huge event where no one. That takes resilience, military spouses, but so we really want to make sure that we make them feel welcome. And in order to do that is you have to have intentional ideas and programs. And we purposely station people all over the place that can welcome them and make them feel at home. So I'm glad you felt that when you were there.
Yeah. Well, so jumping back into the question for just a minute, neither audience or community is like better or worse than the other in that sense. And so when you think about like, as far as being a small business owner, it's important to remember, I think, that it's okay if all you want is an audience.
Right.
But if you want to build community, you have to do something different than you would I'm going to say normally, like whatever that might look like. But that one-way communication has to be what you were just saying, Jen, super intentional, very thought through, so that there is an opportunity and a desire and a motivation for people to respond back and start that two-way building, which is where community comes from, right?
Yes, exactly. And I love that you brought up, it's not one is better than the other. I think it's thinking through, what do you want that to look like? When we go to hear a TEDx speaker and to be motivated or personally lifted up, it's that one, you're in the audience. But boy, I'd kill to be in an audience of a TEDx speaker, so it's not better or worse. It's just our intention with Mill Spouse Fest was very much to be in connection and really part of a community, not just feeling like an audience. And actually, that was a lot that we heard in the survey, was even more of that. That's what they wanted more of, was a time to connect with each other. So they're actually going back to a model, this next one that's in San Diego, that we did years ago. And it was always our favorite, and just kind of faded off for a little while. There was very intentional corners of the room of meeting people where you are in your life. So for example, if you have little ones, the newborns through the preschool age, you usually are really wanting to meet another mommy friend. And again, you might not have come there with a mommy friend. You may not even know one. So that you would go to that area of the room. Or if you're, ready for a night out with the gals and want to have a hot toddy, go to this area of the room. So we set up intentional areas for you to connect more in those small subgroups, to be able to connect, because the day is only one day long, and you want to make those, like us, a connection for life.
I want to tell you how important that is. And I know this may come as a surprise to people, but I am kind of an introvert. And so, Jen, when you say, I am so in awe of the ones that do come to a big event, a big party by themselves, it frightens me. I've never attended anything without Anna or another member, because I just need that one person. And when you build those little pockets, like you said, to help give the introverts that do make it there permission to go into these and find more of their community within the bigger community, I think it's so important, because I wish I could be. Anna would go to anything, whether somebody was with her or not. And she's like a rock star. And I just like am so inspired by that confidence. So when you create those, you're creating different moments, because you realize not everybody is an Anna, right? That will just come in and create a party.
For the first time ever, Selena, we're having an introvert corner.
Are you?
Because we realized that, and we were laughing. Dania and I were dying coming up with it, because Dania is like Anna. Well, you've met her.
Yep. Yes.
Never met a stranger. But I'm more like you, and I've learned this over my life. I love, of course, connecting and being there. But at night, I want to go back to my hotel room to recharge. And she's like, "Where are we going out? We're in San Diego." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So we were having such a good time, but for the first time ever, there's going to be an introvert corner. And, you know, they may talk, they may not, they may need, you know, that 15 minutes to just recharge their batteries. But I think they're really going to embrace that, because again, it's being seen and heard that that's okay. You're just as important as the person who is ready to go to the events and stuff. So we're trying really hard to also, again, learn from our community, learn from each other.
Yeah.
Because Dania probably would never think of an introvert corner.
Right.
Yeah.
Neither would Anna. Neither, and not that it's not
It's
because
not
right.
No.
It's just because it's just not like, oh, I didn't realize it was that hard sometimes for introverts to really be a part of it. And sometimes for me, right, I just need an initial, like, to go into the space with someone. And then typically I'll be okay. Anna knows this. She sees me like disappear after we come in. And I am so pumped that you guys created an introvert corner, because I think that's just where everybody's going to start talking like, oh my gosh, do you have the anxiety that I did when I walked in? Like, I mean, and you just created, I think it's going to be a success. I really do. And I cannot wait to attend the next one, because I want to be like, I want to go to that course. Bye, everybody. You know?
Well, yeah. It's, and I think along the lines of talking about community here this morning is that you first really need to listen and tune into your community.
Yeah.
You know, if you think you have all the answers, that's the first wrong answer. I mean, you don't. We're all different and unique. One of our themes one year was you be you, because even though we have this common thread of being in the military community, at the end of the day, we were all, you know, very individualized before we joined the community. We still are. And we want the community to embrace that. And anything I've ever been involved in, I feel like that is my little superpower strength, is to really make sure that people feel seen and heard in their community.
Okay, so before we get too far, I mean, because we're already talking about like question number 2, like we've already dove in there. So I'm going to throw it up there, because I'd love for you to touch on, there's some things that I've heard you say just in the last few minutes, right? So our question was, what are the keys to building a successful community? I've heard you say making sure people feel seen and heard is one. Creating spaces where they're comfortable is going to be another one that you've mentioned. Having an event that they can come to, some sort of thing, right? Like when you describe MilSpouse Fest. And then making
listening
to feedback, and then making it fun, like with the games that you have and the giveaways and the interaction that you, I mean, which I love, right? Introverts might not love, but that whole like fun element and aspect. What would you add to this, Jen, that we haven't talked about yet?
I would say, which is my favorite part, is the constant innovation. It never stays exactly the same. You know, communities and the people in them grow. We learn from them. We are constantly, and I'm very fortunate. I'm the founder of MilSpouse Fest, but I'm really a tangential member now. Dania truly, and she and I, as you know, have known each other for 21 years. Our kids both turned 21 and we met in birthing class. So the credit really goes to her now, but it's fun that I get to ideate with her on ideas. And when we think of when we first started, and as we all know, when you're building a community, you have no idea if anyone's going to show up. So back to your point, Anna, you know, the whole, if you build it, they will come. Well, not necessarily. You don't know if they're going to come till the first person shows up. And ironically, it was in San Diego 9 years ago. So 9 years ago.
Gosh.
I know. And then you learn, and some of it we bring back. I don't know if you guys were ever at the MilSpouse Fest with Family Feud. That was oh my gosh, that was my favorite. And I helped build that with JJ and Maggie, who was with us. And it was a live version of Family Feud with all the most popular answers. And I would work with JJ behind the scenes to come up with the questions and answers. So I think also keeping the fun in it, you know, it is supposed to be fun. And if you're not having fun, they're not having fun. Of course, as you guys know, it's a lot of work.
Yes.
This is a lot of work. So I guess we need to add that in there too. There's intentionality. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. It doesn't, as we know, just happen. And maybe that is one of the most important points is I don't feel like community just happens. I feel like there's an intentional plan and strategy, but then once that starts, you have to constantly be listening, getting the feedback, pivoting, and meeting your community needs. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of planning that goes in place to bring a community together to get it started.
And
Thank
this
you
is
for
whether,
saying that. I mean,
Yeah.
right, Anna? Like, because a
Yeah.
lot of times, sometimes, like you said, people are like, build it, they will come. And then nobody talks about the hard work it goes
Yeah.
into building that so that you can
Yeah.
have a successful event or,
Yeah.
launch of whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
And also just a reminder that this is whether it's virtual or in person. All
Yeah.
of these
Mhm.
same things apply. Like virtually,
Yes.
I think you almost have to work even harder to
Yes.
build that community because it's constant. It's
Yes.
24/7
Yes.
versus an in-person event, that might
Yes.
happen more, over and over again, but it's still a single event that you're attending versus this virtual communities where it's nonstop. People are
Oh,
coming in at 3 a.m. and they're coming in at 9 a.m. and they're coming in at noon and they're coming in at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, right? Like
yeah. Yeah.
constantly churning.
And different energy. It's funny with Dan, you'll have to have Dania on the show too. And
yes,
especially if the
yes,
two of us ever together,
yes.
because we laugh. She is the, inside the box detailed color perfectly. And I'm like, how many which ways can we color outside the box? And
No,
probably
yes.
drive her nuts. But we both also were part of Patriot Boot Camp. So I took over as the CEO of Patriot Boot Camp. And that's a nonprofit that helps military spouse and veterans start and scale technology businesses. And I'm an alumni of the program. It helped me tremendously as a founder and entrepreneur and building my business. So when I took over, and I think it was about 2018, 2019, it's an all in-person 3-day boot camp. And it's always been that way. And then COVID hit. And we're like, uh-oh, how do you transform an entire in-person organization over to virtual, which everybody had to figure out. But we mixed it up and we started doing our Wednesday or coffee Wednesdays, where we would bring people in just like this to just make sure, again, people feel seen and heard. And then we developed it into a 2-day virtual boot camp. And fortunately now it's back to in person, and we all learned how to do it. And it's different. I think back to what you said, that first question, gosh, I love that question, audience versus community. I've never been asked it and I'm just intrigued by it now. Very hard sometimes. And it's dependent on the technology we were using, whether you can interact with the community or the audience or not. And it's so funny because Dania would prefer when somebody was presenting or speaking to kind of, have them just one way. And for me, that's such a struggle. Like, I love that we're all on this together and I can see you nodding or laughing, or because I feed off that, plus kind of get like, okay, we're vibing, we're on the same plane, whereas I struggle with a complete one-way audience. So it's also getting used to the technology you're using for virtual. There's a whole nother, depending on what you want to accomplish, going back into the planning of community or audience, there's a lot of different aspects to it.
And that's such an important point to bring up. The technology that you use that allows you to then build the space the way you want. So if you're just starting out and you have these grand plans, you might have to scale back and start smaller, because unless you got $100,000 to put into all this technology that you want to create this amazing thing, right?
Yes.
And so thinking through those stages and those steps as a business owner is going to be really super important. And that DIY aspect, right? Like we're talking about like the hard work. That's a lot of time, a lot of energy. And so going all the way back to the beginning, evaluating, do I want an audience? Do I want to build a community? Which one is right for my business?
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. Well, when we first started Military One Click, which was back in 2011, originally, I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but originally the vision was to be more of a static resource website library. So the original vision of bringing everything together in one spot of, moving resources, education resources, that has always been the core mission. But then fortunately, we started hearing back from the community that they wanted the blogs, the, connections on social media. And so we started to pivot, and that was overwhelming. I mean, we ended up having probably close to 105 bloggers on our blogger brigade from around the world. And that was not part of the original mission or intention of the business. So I think it's important, like you said, to listen to your audience. And our audience was telling us we want to engage and communicate. So then it was really kind of pivoting into more the community aspect. And then that was going so well is when we did the offshoot subsidiary brand of Mill Spouse Fest. So Mill Spouse Fest was really the in-person version of Military One Click. So that's how that, so like you said, though, Anna, we didn't bite it all off at once. It was stages. We didn't launch, the first Mill Spouse Fest was in 2016. So 5 years later. So it takes time. Yeah.
I love
my gosh. Yeah.
By the way, throwing that out there for military spouses, if you have not attended one, if you don't know what it is, to look it up, find it out, and go to one if you're able to, because they are so much fun. Even if you're going alone, I'm going to encourage you, go alone. Look, there's so many spaces they're making for you alone people.
Literally, my armpits are sweating right now when you say that. So, but I want to just make one point though, right? I know that we have also a very big civilian audience that listens to our show. Everything Jen is saying today applies to any type of community.
It does.
You know what I mean? You're not saying something today that is like, sorry, you only have to be military to.
Not at all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we had a conversation with someone last week where we talked about, and this is our passion, Anna and I, is we love when we can actually bridge the gap between military and civilian. For civilians to know how amazing this community is and the people that come from it, because there's a preconceived notion that we just sit in a home and we bake cookies sometimes, right? And that's not true. Hi, look at Jen. She is a powerhouse. And if I wasn't on TV where my grandma could see this, I would say, another word, because my grandma's good. So, but I just like making that point, because sometimes people are like, so Jen, like, seriously, thank you for just kind of like all of the stuff. And I'm mostly pumped about the introvert corner. I know I'm going back to that, but that is awesome.
We'll have to send you out there to see what you think. No, it's interesting. We're just having this conversation. I was fortunate. One of the main things I'm involved in now is the Veteran Fund. You had talked about it, and it's a venture capital back group for companies that are veteran leadership or military spouse leadership. But the coolest thing, and I talked about this out there, is that what I love the most is actually it's 50-50 probably with civilian and military community. And I think of it as really the best of the best, because we can't live in a bubble. You can't create a company in a bubble. You can't, and I feel bad saying this, but sometimes you have to build a business, whether it's military or civilian or whatever industry it is, to be a little agnostic to that, because first of all, you may get hit by a bus. So I've always built whatever companies I've been involved in that I am replaceable, but the model has to be replicable. So you can take the playbook from Military One Click, Mill Spouse Fest, Patriot Boot Camp, and honestly, like, just move it over to the next entity or organization, tweak so that it's got some unique parts of that. But at the end of the day, the things we were talking about earlier are applicable to civilians, businesses, just as well as military spouse and veteran businesses. So that is important for people to know. There's no quick switch. I think that's the other thing is people, believe they can just flip a switch and it all happens. And if you guys find that switch, let me know. Because as far as I've seen, there isn't. It's just at the end of the day, it's a lot of hard work.
No.
So, yeah. Yes. So we're kind of coming up to kind of the end of our time. And
no,
right? You. We're gonna do a series though. I'm manifesting it right now.
Okay.
Jen's gonna be a regular. We're gonna bring
Sounds good. I'm so excited.
It's gonna be a party.
Yes.
Right here on the 15-ish minute coffee. Yeah.
I love 15-ish. 3.5 hour-ish.
We'll do 3.5 hours
Jen,
and break it up. That's what we're doing.
Jen, you know how at the Mill Spouse Fest you guys give t-shirts? I absolutely 100%. If you put introvert on my shirt for Mill Spouse Fest, I would so wear it.
I love it.
And I would I would literally maybe change my shirt just so people knew.
I love it. I will pass that idea. Yes. I love it. See, that's how it happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Okay.
Well, Anna.
Okay. Well, so this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Let's go to our toolkit because our toolkit is community. And when we go to our toolkit, what I would really love to do is have Jen address kind of our last question because these communities that Jen has built, you just talked about the fact that you built them to where you can be replaced, right? So if we pull up our toolkit and then we throw up this last question, which is how do you know when it's time to step away?
Oh my gosh. And I just shared this story this past week. That's the fun part. I will say that this, full circle moments. I'm so fortunate that I'm here still in the community, but I am not running Mill Spouse Fest, Military One Click, PBC. I'm not. And how did I know when it's time to step away? We don't have enough time for the first one. That will be a whole nother episode. But I will say that for when I stepped away from Mill Spouse Fest, finally, and it took a whole nother episode for us to talk about being in the right hands with the right people and the right mission. And it wobbled a little bit after I sold it. And I equate it, and you girls will get this, I equate it to being like on the other side of the glass at the play place at Chick-fil-A or McDonald's and seeing your kid just getting like pummeled and beat up and demolished. And the little bratty kid locked the door and wouldn't let you in. So it was, and I did share this, 2017 was one of the hardest years of my life. I could almost get choked up about. It was very difficult. So I will say that when you do step away, when you are ready to step away, when you have to step away, whatever it is, be prepared that it is a major transition. And a couple of friends I know have also gone through. We kind of joke around, it's like Founders Anonymous. It's very difficult, but I'm fortunate that I am able to still visit and connect. And last year I was part of them helping them scale back up. So on the other side, I would say that you also have to really dig deep in your own soul. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone's family situation is different, financially, kids, ages, stages. So please don't ever compare yourself out there to someone else's exit, when, where, how, what. I would say the biggest way to know when it's time to step away is look inward. When you know for you it's time to step away, that's when it's time to step away.
That is a great answer. And it does make me feel choked up too, because you think about times that you've exited other things. So I think, thank you for sharing that. And the analogy too of like a bratty kid locking you out of a space that you can go grab your kids.
I have a lot of stories, ladies. Brandy might not be able to listen to that episode.
when we talk about community, and we have photos up here, 2 of them are from Mill Spouse Fest, which Jen is the founder of, and then we have down below is a feed off, but we had Ashley Gudermuth who went to her event with Operation Hilarious, and then we were telling Jen, Anna and I went to the Military Influencer Conference in Las Vegas last year, and in the bottom right there's a photo of us in the airport connecting with another military spouse, but also running into another podcast friend that we hadn't seen during the whole conference, but we met literally on our way home from work. But these are like pockets of communities that kind of go beyond just, we're brought together because of Mill Spouse Fest, or because of Mick, or because of this, but it kind of continues on when that event is still not being held, and the community still comes together for a common reason. Before we end, I just want to share one more picture, and I just want Jen to kind of share with everybody, because I just love this picture, and maybe you may not realize who this person is, but I'm going to let Jen know. This is also at the Military Influencer Conference in Las Vegas 2023. Jen, tell everybody who this fabulous guest is, and what an honor, and again, how it's related to community.
Yes. Oh my gosh, what a pinch me moment. Lieutenant Colonel James Harvey III is 100 years young in that photo, just a couple months ago, and he was the first African American combat pilot. So when we talk about the original Top Gun, he is it. I'm also a fangirl because he was born in New Jersey like me. So I've maybe all the fun people are born and raised in Jersey, but he was just phenomenal to share his story. So he was awarded one of the top Mighty 25 through We Are the Mighty awards, recognizing his service and continued service to our country. And he just is a hoot. He was so fun to talk to and sharing his stories. And so he was just phenomenal. And again, talk about community. He certainly has embraced what that means, and people just love and adore, but more than anything, respect his career and our service. And it was an honor to meet him.
It's one of our biggest regrets. We had to go home before the gala. I had no idea he was going to be there. I would have loved to have met this.
And he sat and talked with everyone and anyone that wanted to. Just so gracious with his time. And as you can see, he was great. So it was a special time. Mick, as you know, is a special event and program. It will be happening in September, so late September this year in Atlanta, Georgia. So all of you who are listening, please join all of us down there. It's like a big old family reunion. But
no, I'm excited. And so I'm gonna true introvert confession, Jen, right? I saw you at Mick, but you're kind of busy. And I was like, I don't, it's been 2 months. And the introvert in me did not go and tackle you. However, now in September, when I know we are going, I'm literally going to bear hug you from behind and be like, introvert power. You know what I mean?
Yes. So, I wish you came up. They did. They worked me pretty hard this time.
No.
So it was a lot of fun, but it was, we had, I think 1,500 people, 110 speakers. So for the audience, Military Influencer Conference and now Mill Spouse Fest are all owned and under one brand. So, and what's great about that, one last quick note, is Cortez, the founder of Mick, and I have been friends forever. And I was with him when he was ideating about Mick. And I'm telling your audience out there, it starts with an idea. Now, of course, there's a lot of hard work and execution following all of that, but we always said our dream was to work together. And so another full circle moment this year is we were able to both be there working together with both our brands that were 100% organic, community built. Neither one of us have ever had VC backing. So built off the revenue that comes in from building, a community with incredible partners that believe in your mission, and it can happen. So it was really neat to be there together. But as you saw, we're running around. It's a lot of work. Totally worth it, but a lot of work.
I mean, as we end, and Anna will end our show, but I just want to say to you, like, thank you for coming on to our show and just kind of being a part of our little community. That means quite a lot to Anna and I, and just sharing all the things. I love the story of you and Cortez. And I think, telling everybody, yes, starts with an idea. Remember, it is hard work. If you really, really want this, you know what I mean? You got to know the work that you have to put in to build it. So,
and always keep asking. Don't ever be afraid to ask anyone. People, I think I had some sort of connection at USAA. Honestly, I thought I was going to look up a 1-800 please sponsor me number on Google to, land a sponsorship. And it took me 2 full years to prove ourselves, get our numbers up, build the community before I ever had a actual paid contract with them. And here we are 9 years later. They were the first, and they are still the largest sponsor of Mill Spouse Fest. So if you build it and then keep asking, they will come. Maybe that's what we need to put in the parentheses for how to build a community.
Well, it's like we're gonna have to add like 17 things, and keep innovating, and keep creating, and keep listening, and keep and then at the very end we'll say, and keep asking, right? Because all of those things go into maintaining that.
Really do. They really do. Oh, thank you so much. This truly filled my soul. Anytime. I would love to pop on and say hi again. And, but please.
100%, Jen. I don't know. We're going to make it happen.
Yay.
I know now I'm going to just stalk you in your DMs and LinkedIn. That's kind of like what I've been doing, but tell everybody where you are and where they can, kind of conversate with you.
Yeah. So I'm in Maryland. So if anybody's ever in Maryland or the DC area, please hit me up on LinkedIn, DMs. I am in the middle of rebuilding my website. I purely now, fortunately, I'm in the consulting world. So it's just strategic military communications, but redoing the website, the technology thing. But please hit me up on LinkedIn, DMs. Love to talk. I do a lot of mentoring still with veteran and military spouse-owned companies, even civilian companies, because I just love it. Keep learning, keep growing, keep innovating. So thank you, ladies, so much.
Yes, no. And we'll be sure to throw in, because by the airing of this show, Jen will probably have a little bit more information on her website. So we'll make sure that is included in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Jen, this is where I'm supposed to be quiet because Anna is, she ends the show better.
Anna likes to wax long at the very end. So
I put on Oscar music and everything. So being quiet.
Thank you so much, Jen, for being our guest today. Thank you to our listening audience that was here with us today. You can always find us at annaandselena.com for the latest in the best business tips for small business owners and entrepreneurs from the 15-ish minute coffee chat. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.